everyone to FM Academy's 12 Days of FileMaker series. This is the fourth webinar entitled FileMaker Go Enhancements, where we will explore new functionality for the mobile user. Our presenter will be Kirk Bowman of MightyData. Following the presentation, there will be a question and answer period. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Kirk Bowman.
Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for taking time to join us. This is the fourth in a series of webinars from FileMaker Academy entitled The 12 Days of FileMaker 12. I'm Kirk Bowman. I'm the visionary of value for MightyData. We're a Platinum FBA member, and we're one of 7 companies that make up FM Academy. Those companies are 360 Works out of Atlanta, Amble Data Works out of the Washington, D.C. area, IT Solutions from Philadelphia, New York, Billhead from the Portland, Washington area, Logic from New England, primarily Connecticut, Massachusetts, MightyData, we're based in Texas, and then Skeleton Key in Missouri. All of these companies have combined to put together this series of 12 webinars on different features of FileMaker 12. The webinars are going on every Tuesday and Thursday for the next 5 weeks. We've already had 3 webinars, and those recordings have already been posted to the FileMaker Academy website. So we hope that you'll enjoy today's webinar, but that you'll also come back and join us for future webinars as we continue the series. So let's talk about FileMaker Go. The first thing you should know about FileMaker Go is that it is free. This was something that was a very pleasant surprise to those of us who read the press release when FileMaker 12 was announced about 2 weeks ago. As you may remember, FileMaker Go prior to 12 was a paid app. In fact, they've rebranded the old version. They're calling it FileMaker Go 11, and it's still a paid app. But FileMaker Go 12 is free, and this is a game changer. What that means is it's removed a barrier for people to begin to use FileMaker, particularly in a mobile way. And so we think this is going to really open some doors. If you take a look at this screenshot of the iTunes Store, you'll see listed under iPhone apps, both FileMaker Go 11 and 12, and the same under iPad. And again, notice under 12, it's free. So there's really nothing that would preclude somebody from going and downloading this. So that's the first thing. Next, let's talk about some of the starter solutions. FileMaker 12 comes with an incredible amount of starter solutions, and the cool thing about all of them is they all have layouts already designed for FileMaker Go, both for the iPhone and iPad. And by the way, when I say iPhone, that also applies to the iPod Touch. There are actually 4 solutions that come pre-installed on the device, but then if you create another starter solution out of some of the additional ones that come with FileMaker, you're also going to get some iOS layouts as well. So let's take a look at what is actually installed on the device by default, and then we'll look at maybe one that we would create using FileMaker Pro. So what you're seeing on the screen right now, using an application called Reflection, which uses Apple's AirPlay technology to broadcast the image from my iPad to the desktop. So what you're actually seeing is the actual iPad screen that I'm going to be working with. So let's go into FileMaker Go. One thing you'll notice on the screen, there's actually 2 FileMaker Go apps. One with a green badge, kind of in the center left, and then one at the bottom right with a purple badge. The green badge is for FileMaker Go 11. The purple badge is for FileMaker Go 12. So let's go ahead and open up Go 12. And when you open up FileMaker Go, initially you're presented with this file dialog that shows you not only databases that actually are on the device, but also databases that are available hosted. We're going to start with some files on the device. the four that come pre-installed are assets, contacts, content management, and then if we scroll to the bottom, you'll see there's also a tasks database. Let's just go into one of these. Let's just start with the assets. And so you notice when assets opens up, it has a layout that looks very friendly for the iPad. And by the way, I'll be using the iPad for all of these demos, but a lot of the technologies and things that we talk about apply to the iPhone as well, just a smaller form factor. So let's go ahead and take a look at this 15-inch notebook. And you'll notice we have a screen where we can enter some of the basic information. There's already an image of it, and there's even a field down at the lower right where we could actually capture the signature of the person this is assigned to. So that's assets. Let's take a look at another one. Contacts. Here you'll notice we have a list of contacts organized by category, friend, personal, professional. Let's go take a look at Beth from Vendor Portraits. And so again, a very friendly interface here. You'll notice you do need to scroll up and down a little bit to see everything. But again, you've got an image. You scroll down on the address, you'll notice it's displaying a Google map. And there's some basic functionality such as a button to open the web browser, a button to send an email. The next one is content management. We'll talk more about content management relating to FileMaker Go in a moment. In fact, we're going to come back to this database. But for now, realize there's a database that's pre-installed that already has some content in it. By content, we mean electronic documents, images, PDFs. If I scroll down, you'll notice some Word docs, a keynote presentation, a numbers file, and so forth. Let's go ahead and we'll just head over to this PDF real quick. And so again, you'll notice place to do the data entry, a large container field at the bottom. We'll talk more about container fields in a moment. But if you want to manage documents on your iPad, you've already got something installed. All right, let's go look at tasks. Of course, tasks is what you would expect it to be. It is a to-do list. So if we go look at this to-do for hiring a new salesperson, it's pretty straightforward. One of the nice things is these sample files take advantage of a lot of the new capabilities in layout mode in FileMaker. In fact, the first and third webinars in our series were on layout mode. And so, for example, you'll notice I have arrows where I can move the date up and down, and you can see the calculation beside it, the days due changing. So again, just another starter solution. Now, another thing you should be aware of, when you open FileMaker Go on the iPad, not on the iPhone, but on the iPad for the very first time, it's actually going to open up this Getting Started database. And this is actually kind of a database that's designed to take you on a tour through FileMaker Go. What is really neat about this is it's actually a FileMaker database. So they're actually using a database, using the tool to actually show you how to use it. We'll go ahead and start the tour, and it takes you through some of the basic uses, shows you where things are. So if you've never used FileMaker Go and you have it on an iPad, I would encourage you to check out this database. The first time you launch FileMaker Go on an iPad, this database opens up by default. All right. Let's go take a look at one more example of a starter solution. I'm actually going to create a new one from scratch. And so I've switched over to FileMaker Pro, and under the File menu, you have the option to create a new database from a starter solution. They're organized by categories. I'm just going to choose one here just to show you that, kind of out of the box you get something. Let's see. How about invoices? Save that on my desktop. And so if we go to the layout picker, you'll notice that there are folders for 3 different devices or platforms. The desktop, which would be FileMaker Pro. You'll see the check mark beside customer details, which indicates that's the layout we're currently on. You'll notice there's some different layouts for iPad, basically a list and detail for each of those areas, and then also iPhone. So right out of the box, you've got those different devices ready to go. Here's what the iPad layout looks like. And then we'll go ahead and take a look at the iPhone real quick. There's your iPhone. So right out of the box, you've got 16 different starter solutions that all come with layouts designed for iOS. And remember, 4 of these solutions are actually already on the device. So FileMaker's gone out of the way to really make it easy for people to get up and running with a basic solution. All right, let's talk a little bit about themes. If you watched one of the previous webinars, you got a lot more information about themes. FileMaker Pro 12 has 5 different themes specifically designed for the iOS. So I want to show them to you in Pro, and I'll show them to you on the iPad. So I'm actually going to go over to Contacts. And what I've done in this database is I've actually taken one of the layouts and rendered it in each theme so we can kind of see the difference. So let's go to the first one. River Touch is kind of this nice blue theme. It's the default theme for the Contacts starter solution. If we drop into layout mode for a second, where you change themes is going to be under the layout menu using the change theme command. I'm not actually going to change it, but I do want to show you where all these themes live. Any of the themes that are designed for the iOS are going to be labeled Touch. So for instance, here's Ocean Touch. There's River Touch, the one we were just looking at. There's also Wave Touch, Onyx Touch, and Cool Gray Touch. So let's take a look at what those look like. Here's Cool Gray Touch. Now mind you, I didn't tweak these layouts. So for example, if you look closely on this one, you can probably see a few areas where you might want to adjust it a little bit. My point was just to give you a quick idea of what these look like. Here's Onyx. Onyx is kind of this dark gray, black, metallic theme. There's Ocean Touch. And finally, Wave Touch. So if you're ready to create your own iOS layout, take a look at these themes and figure out which one you think is going to work best for you. The one advice that we do give on a theme is once you pick one, stick with it. Switching between themes, as you can see from these layouts, I started with River Touch and then applied a different theme. They don't always display perfectly. They might need a little bit of adjustment. So try to pick your theme before you start your development. It will save you some time and effort. All right. Let's go over, I said I was going to show you the themes on the pad, so let me switch over to the pad. And let's go to Files. And I'm going to be accessing most of the databases from this point on off of my laptop, just because it'll be easier to drop into layout mode and show you things on the same database we're seeing on the pad. But anyway, here is River Touch on the pad. Here is cool gray on the pad. Onyx touch on the pad. Ocean touch on the pad. And this one in particular right now, it really is showing that it needs some tweaking. And then finally, wave touch. All right, so let's talk about iOS stencils. You no longer have to guess the layout size for your devices. Switch over to FileMaker Pro, and let's just go back to the iPad details layout here. Drop into layout mode, and I'm going to show the toolbar. I'm doing that because I want to be able to widget. And it's a new widget that's been added to the toolbar, and you'll notice it lists 4 different standard desktop sizes, a couple of iPhone sizes, a couple of iPad sizes. You'll notice both the iPad sizes are checked right now. So here is the border, this orange rectangle that's wide for portrait mode on an iPad. And then it's a little harder to see, but there actually is another orange rectangle that is taller for portrait mode. So the wide one's landscape, the narrow one's portrait. And if you remember from the layout sessions, you can set an explicit edge. And so on this particular layout, the explicit edge has been set for portrait. But you can turn these stencils on and off. So for example, I'll turn off the one for portrait, leaving only the one for landscape. One of the cool things about this is, let's say we decide, you know what, we now need to do an iPhone landscape layout. I can turn that stencil on, and you can easily contrast the amount of screen real estate available with the iPhone versus the iPad. So I think stencils are going to go a long way toward helping. Now, stencils are not going to take care of everything. On the iOS, there are some issues with whether the toolbars are showing or not, and just like in FileMaker, as I was able to show and hide the toolbar, you can do that on the iPad as well. So you want to take that into account as well. But these will go a long way toward helping you out. All right, let's talk about multitasking. With FileMaker Go 11, it did not support what Apple calls multitasking. Nothing on an iOS device is truly multitasking. Whenever you move one app to the background and another to the foreground, the app actually goes into a suspended state. But FileMaker Go 11 really didn't have the ability to go into a suspended state. It would actually save some data and then exit. Now in FileMaker Go 12, you have the ability for multitasking, meaning when you switch apps, FileMaker Go will go into a suspended state, and then when you switch back, it will come up much faster than it did previously. Now, there are some caveats on that. There's kind of 3 general categories of things that can cause an iOS device or an app on an iOS device to lose focus. One is going into the background, which is typically going to the home screen or switching app. If you're on a phone, it could even be a phone call. Another possibility is that the device goes to sleep. Just from inactivity, the screen dims, the device goes inactive to conserve battery power. For both of those things, FileMaker Go actually suspends. It actually writes out a file containing current state of where you are, current found set, current record, current layout, current sort order, all that kind of stuff. And then it just goes into a suspended state. The reason it writes out that hibernation file is because there are some occasions where once it's gone into the background, the iOS may tell it to quit, a lot of times because another app may need more memory. Generally, most of the time, you're going to see that FileMaker Go has just gone into a suspended state and come right back. But in those occasions where the iOS does actually tell it to terminate, that hibernation file that's been written allows FileMaker Go to then start back up and try to resume back where you were. Obviously, if the file you're using, the database file, is local on the device, it's much easier for FileMaker Go to pick up where you left off. If it's a hosted file that you're connecting to, then it's got to reopen that file, which means the network needs to be available, the server's still got to be up, so there are a few more issues involved there. The idea is to get you back into your work as quickly as possible. One thing you ought to know about on scripts is that if a script is running and FileMaker Go goes into a suspended state, FileMaker Go will try to essentially pause that script and then resume it. However, if it terminates, it will not be able to resume that script. So it's just something to keep in mind. I want to jump over to the pad real quick, and I want to see if I can illustrate this behavior. We're going to go into a file that I'm going to be jumping into periodically. I'll tell you more about what this file is later and where you can get a copy of it. But here, on this layout, there's a button to run a script. And so why don't I go ahead and start that running? And you'll notice there's a progress bar that's starting to move. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the home screen. Now let's go back to FileMaker Go. And you'll notice FileMaker Go was able to resume right from where it left off. In fact, if you were paying close attention, you may even notice that where the counter was when I switched to the home screen, it actually had increased. So what's going to happen when I hit the home button, it actually continues to run for a few seconds before it actually suspends. So multitasking, you're going to be able to get back to your work faster. Another topic that is similar is regarding extended privileges. And so if you've worked with FileMaker Go 11, you may remember there was an extended privilege called FM Restore Login, and this extended privilege was designed to allow you as the developer to tell FileMaker Go whether it could immediately log back into the database after FileMaker went into a suspended state, or if it needed for the user to re-authenticate. The behavior between 11 and 12 has changed. With 11, the assumption was by default you wanted to require the user to log back in. However, based on substantial customer feedback, FileMaker has changed that. So the way they've done that is they've introduced a new extended privilege called FM Re-Authenticate. And now the default is to go ahead and open or resume without a login. But you can control that. Let's go over to FileMaker and take a look at this. Jump over to another database. And let's go into Managed Security and look at extended privileges. So you'll notice this FM Authenticate extended privilege, there's two versions of it in the file by default. The first one is FM Re-Authenticate 10. What that means is if this is the privilege set that's assigned to the particular account that a user logs in with, the user will have 10 minutes to come back and resume their activity before they'll have to log in again. This value can go all the way up to basically a week, which is 10,080 minutes. If you try to go any higher, it will just stay at that week value of 10,080 minutes. If you contrast that with this other FM Re-Authenticate, you'll notice it's FM Re-Authenticate 0. When it's 0, that means as soon as the user comes back to resume activity, doesn't matter how long it's been, they have to re-authenticate. So if you need a very secure environment, you're going to want to use this extended privilege. If you have an environment where you don't need it to be as secure, then you can use something more like FM Reauthenticate 10 or 60 or whatever makes sense. One thing to realize is that security with the iPad is multi-level, and so obviously it starts with having a passcode to unlock the device to be able to use it, and then that carries forward to FileMaker deciding what is the appropriate security strategy for your situation. So I'm going to switch back over to the pad, and let's go open that estimates database, and let's look at an example of this. Now you'll notice the database opened up right away. That's because I've got it set up to not have to worry about authentication or anything like that. Now I'm going to switch back over to FileMaker, and we're going to alter the security. First of all, I'll turn off the automatic log on. And second, now I'm going to go in here and create a new account. We'll call it mobile. So we've created a new account called mobile. We've assigned it to the data entry privilege set. Now I'm going to go to that privilege set. I'm going to attach that privilege set to FM Reauthenticate, and this one is going to be the one that is, it's kind of hard to tell here, but if I make the window bigger, you can see this is the second one, which is 0 in this case. So we probably would want to modify the description, but what I'm wanting to do is show you how this works. All right, so let's go back to the pad. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this. Go back and open it again. Of course, now it's going to ask me to re-authenticate or to enter a username and password. This is basically entering the file for the first time. Now we set it up on that FM Authenticate 0, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my home screen. Now go ahead and switch back. And if I've set it up properly, it should ask me to re-authenticate. And I may have gotten the privilege sets backwards. That's 0. And that should re-authenticate when I resume it. But it looks like FileMaker may have crashed on me on my Mac. So anybody who knows FileMaker knows that what I just did is not the best thing to do, but when you're in the middle of the demo, sometimes you have to improvise. All right, so that FM Reauthenticate will allow you to control when a user has to re-authenticate on the database. Let's look at exporting records. This is a new feature that came in 12. It gives you the ability to export data directly on your iOS device from the database to a variety of formats. The formats include tab delimited, comma delimited, or CSV, a DBF file, which is a common format you will find particularly like with DB2 systems is where I've seen it. A merge file, also HTML and Excel. Now, there are some limitations to how this works. First of all, you're limited to the fields on the current layout. In other words, in FileMaker, you may remember when you export, you get to a dialog where you can use the current layout or you can select the current table to get to other fields. You don't have that on the device. Let's take a look at how it works on the device. So let's go back into estimates this time. Actually, I'm going to switch over to contacts. All right, let's go back to contacts now. We'll go to the contact detail. So if you want to export information, there are 4 menus on the device, and so the top left corner, when you click, or not click on it, but touch it, it brings up the ability to choose the file or window that you want to work with. The bottom left corner allows you to manage layouts, switch layouts and such. The bottom right corner gives you 2 menus. The first one is what I call the Find menu, and then the second one is a Records menu. The top right, you'll see the gear. I call this the Tools menu. And this is where you're going to find the export command. You choose export. The next dialog is going to give you the ability to name the file. You can choose the type of data you want. Here are the various file formats that I mentioned. We'll go ahead and choose Excel. One thing I want to point out with Excel, it's .xlsx, not XLS. So just be aware of that. When you go to select fields, you'll notice right now all the fields are checked for export. You can see there's a green check mark beside them. These are all fields on the current layout. There is no ability to go and select fields that aren't on the layout. Now, I can choose the fields I want, and I can even reorder them as well. And let's see, let's do a phone number and an email. And now we'll go ahead and hit done. And in the export dialog, you have a couple options. One is email, and what this will do is create an outgoing email with a particular export file attached to it, or you can just save it on the device. I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. Once it's been saved, obviously here it's very quick because we're dealing with a small number of records, only 10. Could take a little longer with a larger number of records. The dialog simply says, okay, it's been saved, what do you want to do? Well, we could view it, or we could just click OK. Let me show you where that file has been created. We go back to our file browser. In the left-hand column, Files on Device, you'll notice that it actually will divide the types of the documents based on type. And so now here's the Excel file that I've just created. So if I click on it, it actually opens it up. And obviously we had no data in the home phone field, but there you go. And from this screen, the top right-hand corner will give you the ability to actually then do other things. If you want to open it, for example, I've got Quick Office installed, which is an app that allows you to work with Word documents. You could choose another app if you wanted, so you see it gives me a few other options, or you could even print. So that's the export option. By the way, it fully supports exporting via script as well, so you could very easily just make that a button that a user could use. Snapshot Link. This is similar to exporting. the idea with Snapshot Link is that you can create a file that saves the current state of the database, including the current layout, the current file set, current record, and so forth, and then send that file to somebody. And if they have FileMaker Go and the ability to open the file, they can open the Snapshot Link and restore the database to whatever the state was when you saved the link. This feature, Snapshot Link, was around in FileMaker 11 on the desktop. Now we've got it in Go on the mobile device. Let's go back into Contacts. And I'm going to go ahead and do a search for everybody in the professional group. I found 5 records. And so now I want to be able to go back to the list view. And now I want to be able to send somebody a snapshot link that would open up the database in list view to these records in this particular sort order. So we're going to go back to Tools. This time we're going to go to Save Send, which is right under Export. You'll notice we have an option for Snapshot Link. Similar to the export, you got the ability to name it. You have the ability to decide whether you want just the current record of the file set, and also you can email and save it. Again, I'm just going to save it on the device. And now I'm actually going to go close all the files that are on the device. In the file browser, under Assets, you see contacts-2.fmpsl, FileMaker Pro Snapshot Link. So let's click on that. And you'll notice it immediately logged me right back into the database and brought me right back to that view. So that's the power of Snapshot Link, is the ability for users who have Go to be able to send these snapshot links back and forth. And since Go is free, if you've got somebody, a customer, a vendor, some type of partner that you want to be able to view your data, if you can get them to download Go, you may be able to send them a snapshot link, particularly if it's a hosted database. Charting. Charting was added in FileMaker 11 and expanded in FileMaker 12. There's now 8 different types of charts. I think there's 3 or 4 new ones. The same charts you have available in FileMaker Pro are available in FileMaker Go. So I'm going to open up this charts file. And by the way, I want to thank Jerry Salem at IT Solutions for providing me one of his sample files so I didn't have to recreate one for charts. Let's just show you on the desktop. Basically what we have here is some very simple data. We've got some time trials, so basically a starting and ending time, or the amount of time that it took, as well as the type of trial. So you see we've got trial 1, a baseline, an experiment, and so forth. So let's look at this in a column chart. I'm just kind of showing, in this case, it's showing the relative temperature change over time. A line. And then this is one of the new ones, a scatter plot. So let's go take a look at those on the device. Same interface. This hasn't necessarily been optimized for the pad too much, although it does resize. Let's go look at column. Now you will notice there's a little bit more of a lag with the pad. By the way, the pad I'm using is one of the new iPads, the 3rd generation. A line chart. And finally the scatter plot. So one of the nice things things about FileMaker Go is, as much as possible, they have mimicked what FileMaker Pro can do on the mobile device. Charting is one of these areas where once you set up the charts, you can display them on the mobile device. You can even go further depending on how it's set up. You'll notice here I can actually copy the chart. And now if I want to go back over to my content management file, actually go in here, create a new record, and depending on how this is set up, there it is, paste. So there's your scatter chart copied from one FileMaker database and put into another. All right, container fields, interacting with documents. One of the big, huge features in FileMaker 12, the entire product line, is container fields. I've heard them called managed containers. I've heard them called remote containers. In FileMaker 11 earlier, with containers, you basically had two choices. You could either embed the file in the database, or you could map to it by reference, but the reference had to be to a file server, and anyone who was going to get to the file had to have the exact file path. So now they've introduced a third option, which allows you to actually store container content up on the server. And FileMaker Server will actually make the content available to all the FileMaker clients, and they don't have to worry about the file path. So it has the benefit of making the database smaller because you're not putting documents in it, but at the same time giving you the functionality of reference because you can access it from multiple clients. If you install a new computer, it just works. So mobile container or remote containers and managed containers will work with the device. I'm not running a server right now per se. I'm just going to switch back over and look at the content management file again, just to look at some of the other functionality that we have in containers in FileMaker Go. So let's go back to our list, and we'll just go look at a picture here of Linda. And so if we touch this, since it already has an image, you'll notice we get an actions pop-up. And we have options here to view it. If we click replace, we're actually going to have the ability to replace whatever's in the container with another type of media. Notice we have access to several things here. Camera, which gives us access to not only the ability to take a picture and put it right into the container, also to the photo library that's on the device. We could record audio, we could capture a signature, as well as access the photo library, the music library, or even other files on the device. You could also export it. We'll choose to view it. And for a lot of the viewing of files on the device, a lot of times it will use a browser. So in this case, we're probably using the WebKit engine to display this image. And of course, from here, we can then go further to open it in other apps, print it, and so forth. All right, let's go look at another one. Let's look at a PDF. I actually uploaded a fairly large PDF. This PDF is available from FileMaker. It talks about Go, and it's called the FileMaker Go 12 Development Guide. And you'll notice here in the PDF, in the container field, when I touch it, I get the same options. If I choose View, it's going to open up, again, the iOS app for viewing PDFs, and we're going to be able to scroll through this. We also have Excel. Let's take a look at what Excel looks like. Here I have a sales conference budget, a spreadsheet. Again, notice it's the XLSX format. And again, the same type of action, touch it once, get the pop-up, and then be able to view the spreadsheet. So let's look at adding a new record here. I want to add a new one. And I'm going to show off my dog. Let's call it a dog picture. Let's go down here and tap on the container. And this time I'm going to go to Photos. And you can see I've got some photos here. Let's choose one of my dog. So this is Charlie, and this is one of Charlie's favorite toys. He loves things that squeak, and so he'll put a squeaky toy in his mouth and go around squeaking all day. And so anyway, Charlie's the newest member of our family, and so I think everybody should have a picture of Charlie. So that's picture. Let's look at recording some audio. So let's do audio from webinar. Thank you, autocorrect. And again, we'll tap on the container. This time go to audio. It's going to bring up the ability to record. So, and FileMaker Go just quit on my pad. It looks like just crashes do happen, and we just had one. Many burnt offerings were made to the demo gods in preparation for this webinar. However, they don't always work out. We'll try it one more time. If it doesn't work, we'll move on. The audio. Yeah, it looks like it may be my guess is it's probably a conflict between the presentation app I'm using and the audio recording. So it does work. Let me show you one more thing, and then we'll move on. Let's do a signature real quick. So, we have record locking going on. I don't know if you saw that message, but FileMaker Go will actually check to see if the record's locked. So let's just do a new one. Obviously, that's because of the crash. So we'll just keep going. Go down here and do a signature. All right, so let's go to a signature. And I don't have real good handwriting, in case you were doubting. So anyway, there's a signature. So lots of ability to interact with containers, lots of ability to do things, and it does work with the remote container functionality that comes with Server. All right, let's look at some new calculation functions. There's three different groups of functions I want to talk about. There's two new functions that exist in FileMaker to help you determine location. Now, these are only available on an iOS device. So if I go over to FileMaker and take a look at my calculation functions, let's take a look at location first. So what I've done here is I've just set up a simple database that shows the syntax for the function, an example of its usage, and then we'll get a result. Now, you're not seeing a result for location or location values on FileMaker Pro because they're not supported for FileMaker Pro. We're actually going to need to move over to Go to see them. Well, let me just talk about the syntax. For the location, it takes two parameters. The first parameter is accuracy in meters. How accurate do you want it to be? And by the way, the more accurate, the longer it could take. So you want to determine what is a reasonable amount of accuracy. Here I've determined 100 meters. Then you can also set a timeout. This is a timeout in seconds. So basically what this example says is, give me my location within 100-meter accuracy and do it within 10 seconds. So let's switch over to the pad and see what that looks like. And let's just go to our location. There we go. All right, so what you'll notice is for the location function, we get two values back. The first is latitude, the second is longitude. And so obviously you'll need to know a little bit about where those degrees coordinate to the globe. But anyway, you will get latitude and longitude from that. Now, location values is a little different. Let's take a look at the syntax. Syntax is really similar. Again, you put in an accuracy in meters and a timeout in seconds. So from as far as a syntax or a usage, it doesn't appear that different. What is different is the actual data returned. It returns 6 different values. These are latitude, longitude, altitude, and then degree of accuracy in meters, both horizontally and vertically. And then finally, the last value gives you the age. It tells you how old it is in minutes. So in this particular case, you can see that our latitude is 33 point something, our longitude is negative 96 point something, we're an altitude of 201 meters. It was 65, the accuracy in meters horizontally is 65 meters, 12 meters vertically, and the age of this value is about 0.8 second, or 0.8 minutes. So you can do the math and come out with seconds on that. Notice this is a return to limited list. So if you're going to use these values, you're going to need to have some experience parsing return to limited lists. A return to limited list is simply several values separated by a carriage return. So that's location. And by the way, these values by themselves are not going to be valuable to you, but for example, you can take the latitude and longitude and pass it to a Google Maps URL and get back a map or get back the physical address. So those are just going to be the building blocks. Let's talk about detecting the iOS. I call these detection functions. So let's just jump right back over to FileMaker. Let's go to detection. 2 particular functions you want to know here. System platform. System platform returns a 1 if you're on Mac. It returns 2 if you're on Windows. Sometimes it's plus or minus. It will return a 3 if you're on iOS. So get system platform is a real quick way just to determine, hey, am I on a desktop or am I on iOS? If you need to get more specific, you actually need to determine, well, iOS is not enough. I need to know if I'm on a pad or on a phone. Then you can use get application version. And so you can see here get application version for FileMaker Pro, in my case advanced, says Pro Advanced. Let's take a look at this on the pad. Let's switch over to detection. And so you'll notice system platform returns a 3, and application version when you're on the pad, it's go_iPad and then the version. If you do this on an iPhone or iPod Touch, it's just simply going to be the word go followed by the version. So if you need to know specifically you're on an iPad, you'll want to test for the presence of the word iPad in that string. So those are the kind of things that you would use in startup scripts. A lot of it, since you're probably going to have solutions deployed on a server and probably being served to both clients that are desktops, clients that are iOS devices, maybe even web, you're going to need to use get system platform and get application version in order to make sure that you're displaying the right layouts and providing the right functionality for the right user. All right, integrity functions. By the way, the location functions, that's what FileMaker calls them. Detection functions and integrity functions, that's what I call them. Those are not categories that you'll find in FileMaker's documentation. There's 3 new functions that allow you to help ensure integrity or security of your solution, both identity and data integrity. Now, this should not be construed in any way as an exhaustive discussion of security. I'm simply telling you some of the tools you have available. So let's look at the integrity functions. The first one is get persistent ID, and all 3 of these are get functions just like the previous 2 functions we looked at. Get persistent ID returns a string unique to the device. So if you're concerned about making sure that not only do authorized users access it, but authorized devices, you could actually create a table in FileMaker that stored the persistent ID for the user with their account name, and then when somebody logs in, you could check to see, is the persistent ID for the device they're using match the one that's in FileMaker, and then allow them to continue or not. This allows you, for example, to take some control if some of the iOS devices belong to the company and you only want those to be used rather than personal devices. Get connection state is a status function that basically allows you to determine whether you're using SSL. And this is a new function as well. It allows connection state of 1 means it's not encrypted. There's no SSL being used. 2 means SSL is being used with a self-signed certificate. And 3 means it's actually being encrypted with a certificate that's been authenticated by an external certificate authority, such as VeriSign or others. So for situations where security is really, really high, you're going to want to use the new functionality in FileMaker Server to set up a true signed certificate and then check to make sure your connection state is 3. The last function is get UUID. UUID is a geek term for universal, forget what it is, universal indicator. I forget what the other U is. But what it returns is a string that should be unique. And these are strings that you can use for primary keys. One of the issues with FileMaker Go solutions is you can run them on a pad, you can run them on a server, or sometimes you run a hybrid of some on the pad and some on the server, and you need to import and export data back and forth. In order to ensure valid, unique primary keys, you can start using UUID instead of serial numbers. And then you don't have to worry about managing serial numbers when you're importing and exporting. I actually think people will start doing this on the desktop-only solutions as well. UUID has been available on the desktop for a while through plugins, but since FileMaker Go doesn't support plugins, we don't have that ability. All right, we're getting close to time, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of wrap things up. And we do have several questions, so I want to allow time for those questions. I'll just simply say there is the ability to use the OpenURL script step to execute certain things in the iOS, such as opening a web browser, dialing a telephone, sending an SMS message. There's also a new URL protocol. These two things, I put them side by side in the slides, but they shouldn't be confused. They both use URLs, but they're completely different things. OpenURL is a script step that allows you to reach out and get content, access content through the web and other protocols. URL protocol actually allows you to have other things talk to FileMaker. Let me flip over real quick to this. This is the FileMaker Go 12 development guide. And one of the things documented here is the FMP protocol. You'll notice the syntax here allows you to do something similar like you've done in a browser. Web pages use HTTP. Here we're using FMP, and allows you to pass an account and password, which are optional, to an IP address to open a database name. And there's different ways to open databases. If you go down further, you can actually pass parameters to this. You can actually call a script. So number one, you can open a file. Number two, you can open a file and tell it to perform a script. Number three, you can open a file, tell it to perform a script, and give it a script parameter. You can even go as far as to declare variables. So there's a lot of power here in connecting apps on the devices talking to each other. So you'll get more information about that there. There are some limitations between FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Go. A lot of those are pointed out in the development guide, so you'll want to take a look at those. And there's 3 resources that I would point you to. The first one is the FileMaker Go 12 development guide. It is a PDF. It's available on FileMaker's website. I think if you join their FileMaker developer network or community, it's a free subscription. Basically, you give them your email address, and you get to join for free. You can download that guide. The database that I used earlier to show a couple of things, this FileMaker 12 training tool, this may be the best resource out there right now of hardcore development, developer-level information on FileMaker Go. You remember we used it to show putting FileMaker Go, suspend it, and come back. This is from Rich Carlton Consulting. By the way, I'm going to include URLs to these resources in a blog article that I'll be posting by the end of the week to accompany this session. So don't, right now, just note the ones you want to go for and then catch our blog and we'll tell you where to go get them. And then the last one is Module 13 of FileMaker Training Series. Currently, they're in the process of updating it for FileMaker 12, but once it's released, it's going to be a really good resource as well for good information. So those are 3 additional sources of information that I would mention. So if you want to stay in touch with us, you can do that by emailing us at info@MightyData.com. I encourage you to check out our blog at our website, MightyData.com/blog. There's a lot of content there, including some things about Go that I'll be adding. And then you can follow me on Twitter at MightyData. We do have another webinar coming up next week, April 24th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Mark Richmond from Skeleton Key will be talking about a very powerful feature in FileMaker 12, Quick Table View. Table View has expanded dramatically in its functionality, and so if you're interested in giving your users the ability to kind of do their own reports, you'll want to attend this session. You can also find more information about other things about FileMaker Academy at FileMakerAcademy.com or, of course, our website, MightyData.com. Just want to mention again the companies that are involved in putting this webinar together. 360 Works in Atlanta, MightyData in Dallas, Austin, and Houston, IT Solutions in Philadelphia and New York, Anvil Data Works in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, Fiddlehead in Portland, Skeleton Key in St. Louis, and Keel Logic in Westport, Connecticut. If you have any questions, I would encourage you to reach out to the particular company that is closest to you geographically. They'd be more than happy to help, and please tell them you heard about them at the FileMaker Academy webinar. So now, with that, I'll jump right into questions here. I think we do have some questions, and so obviously we're over time. I'm happy to stick around and try to answer questions, but we certainly understand if you may not be able to stick with us. So let's just go ahead and dive into the questions.
Okay, Kirk, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Thank you goes out to Jonathan who answered the question for the UUID. It's universally unique identifier. And let's see, some questions here. Is there a new get function to return whether iOS is in portrait or landscape mode?
No, there's not. Detecting screen orientation, like when the user flips the device, is something that is very difficult to do right now. There are a couple of get functions. There's like 6 get functions dealing with screen size. 4 of them do not change the value if you rotate the device, but 2 of them do. And off the top of my head, I want to say it's get window content width and get window content height. I'm going to make it a point to put that in the blog article because that's actually something that I want to confirm. So those functions would give you the ability to detect it if you run a script or something, but there's not like a on-device orientation change script trigger right now. That's something we would like to have, but we don't have it currently.
Okay, there are a few questions regarding performance. I'll kind of sum them up in, have you seen any screen refresh issues or performance issues when using Go 12 as opposed to 11?
So Go 12 is a fairly new product, just been in the wild a couple of weeks. They have done a lot in the FileMaker 12 product line as a whole to improve performance. Part of that is they've done a lot of work on FileMaker Server to improve WAN performance. They've also done work on Go as a client to reduce the number of trips that have to go back and forth. So we don't have any hard metrics yet, although there are some. If you look in that training tool, in fact, let me switch over there. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Here, this is the Rich Carlton FileMaker 12 training tool. He does have some tests that they've run on FileMaker Go versus Pro, server versus local files, and I've also done some testing of the iPad 1, 2, and 3. So probably this is going to be your best source of information right now, but in general, they've done a lot to improve it. But also remember, if you're dealing with a mobile device, it doesn't have the same power as a desktop, so there are a lot of things you can do to improve performance, keeping font size small, keeping your layouts lightweight, making sure that you're not running really heavy scripts or unstored calculations. Consider whether you need to be always relying on a network. There's a variety of things that factor into it. But the short answer is yes, in general, it should be better, but your mileage may vary depending on your solution.
Can you lock the screen orientation?
You can using, I shouldn't say you can lock the screen orientation. You can lock whether the screen will scroll or not. Our friends over at Skeleton Key actually did a blog article on this, so I would encourage you to go to skeletonkey.com and check out their blog article on this. But basically, if you have a layout that's not designed for FileMaker Go specifically, you can certainly pull that up on your iOS device, but you're going to have to scroll left and right, probably because the desktop is bigger than your mobile device. You can use the strip step to lock the zoom level at 100, and that will help prevent scrolling. But you're just going to have to use anchors to deal with. You're either going to have to decide when you design your layout. Are you going to design the layout so it's fluid, so if they switch, or are you just going to require it to be in it?
Can you allocate a default account name to FileMaker Go on individual devices?
No. And I want to double check just to make sure something hasn't changed, but I'm fairly certain. No, you cannot. There is something called username, but it's not going to be the same if you go into the settings. So let me switch over to the device here. Let me show you how I got here. If you go up to the Tools menu and bring up Settings, there's going to be this username, but that's not going to be the same thing as a FileMaker account. So the short answer to your question.
Someone asking, do the container files have to be on the same server?
Yes. Because FileMaker Server is managing the containers, when you're using remote containers or managed containers, they do have to be on the same server, whether that's a physical server or virtual server. They basically exist in a folder at the same point on the hard drive where the database exists on FileMaker Server. If you need to store, if you're dealing with a lot of documents or large documents, you're concerned about performance, you need to put those on another server, you're probably going to look at Super Container. Super Container is a third-party product from 360works that allows you to get around that limitation. By the way, there's also some good content about managed containers versus remote containers in that FileMaker 12 training tool from Rich Carlson.
Well, thank you, Kirk. I think that's all the time we have for questions today. And I do thank everyone for attending the webinar. And as Kirk said, look forward to seeing next Tuesday's webinar. And do you have anything else to add, Kirk?
If we didn't get to your question, I will try to answer the questions we weren't able to get to on the blog. So please, again, MightyData.com/blog and also FileMakerAcademy.com. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and hope you have fun using FileMaker Go. Take care.